Well, good morning, fellow average humans. How are all you doing this fine morning? That's great to hear. Not like I can hear anything, but I figured I'd try to do the camera thing. Whatever. So, today is going to be a longer episode. I talked with Dave Johnson of Lost Sheep Ministries, and he talks about his ministry and how it came to be. And it wasn't so much at this point, but it was like shortly after this point where I learned about some new people, and it was because of Dave. Dave had shared a link with me, and I'll talk about that later in other episodes. But right now, let's get to Dave and Lost Sheep Ministries and what they're doing to try to help the addicted. And what else do they do? They help people. That's what they do, but he can talk about it better than I can. So I'll just shut up and stop rambling as best I can here. Okay. And here we go. Maybe.
Out there who is struggling.
What?
They want
to start from the beginning. There we go. All right.
Hi there, and welcome to I'm Only Human, a podcast that attempts to explain how to coexist with other humans. This podcast is going to dive into topics like: is it possible to overcome human nature? Are rules and laws necessary for taming bad behaviors, or are they simply a control mechanism crafted by other disturbed minds? Why do we fight with each other? How does traditional religion impact us? Can social disease be healed through individual recovery? My name is Jen, and I'm an average human. Before I begin, I would like to state that I will be talking about controversial things such as, but not limited to, religion, God, the Bible, 12-step programs, and politics. I am not an expert, and I don't claim to be one. I will, however, be referencing Alcoholics Anonymous because it is the granddaddy of all other 12-step programs. I will also be quoting things from the Bible and mentioning God along with different religions. I'm not trying to promote a particular program, nor am I trying to convert anyone. I believe religion gives us a foundation, and 12-step recovery guides people down a path to self-actualization. Through recovery, healing is possible. I believe that changed minds and attitudes can change our world. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today I have with me Dave Johnson from Lost Sheep Ministries, and it's kind of weird how I came across his phone number. I hadn't been talking to my oldest daughter for a while, and then I started this podcast, and out of the blue, she gave me this phone number of Dave, and I waited a few weeks, and then I gave it a call. And Dave is a really pleasant person, and he told me about what he does, and I'm excited to talk to him. And I saw his YouTube videos, and then I was excited, and I told my daughter, and she's like, "Do you know who you're texting? I don't go to church." So it was a miscommunication. And either way, I got to talk to Dave, and he is an awesome guy. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Dave, and what you do and what Lost Sheep Ministries is about?
Okay, well, thank you very much. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so I was working at a little bit about my background. I grew up in an alcoholic family. Okay, I don't know what's going on with my throat here. Just a second.
Well, you said in your one interview that the devil tries to stop things from happening, and this might be one of those things.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, I think I'm okay right now. Yeah, so I never thought I would be heading up a ministry. I grew up in an alcoholic family. I'm not an addict. I'm not an alcoholic, but it started when I got an invite to go have coffee at Starbucks on 98th and Lindale in Bloomington. The gentleman that asked me to go, when we sat down at the table, he said, just wanted to check with you and another gentleman that he brought with, if you're interested in being on an Alpha team. I said, oh, really? Where are you doing Alpha? And he said, at the Salvation Army. I said, well, why would the Salvation Army do Alpha? And he said, well, it's called the ARC. I said, well, what is that? And he goes, it's the Adult Rehabilitation Center. It's a residential program for men. It's a Christian program. And if they're willing to submit and surrender to God, he sets them free. And I started bawling my eyes out. I've never had an experience like that before. It's as if I knew that scripture that said, I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope in a future. It's like that hit me. And it was like, wow, God, this is your plan for me. Okay, so I went down there and I was a part of that team. That was one day a week, but I couldn't stay away. And so that kind of started the whole process. I would go in there and it's like, God, who do you want me to talk to? And he'd point somebody out and I'd ask him, hey, could we sit down and talk for a few minutes? And next thing you know, these big buff guys with, tattoos all over, they're crying when they're talking to me. I'm like, I don't understand it. But somehow God was using me to break through to these people to open up. So that was my introduction. After, I was there for, 2 months or so, they came to me and asked me if I would teach a class on Christian living. I said, okay, sure. So I started doing that. And then another month went by and they came to me and said, hey, would you be a counselor here? And I said, well, I can't be a counselor. I mean, I didn't go to school to be a counselor. I already have a full-time job. I don't have any time to do that. And I said, well, I can try it part-time just in the evenings after I'm done with my regular full-time job. And so that's what I would do. And so I come in there at like 5 o'clock, and then I would be there until like 10 o'clock at night. And so it's 5 hours, in the evening. And it just, one thing turned to the next, and I ended up being there for 12 years. Yeah, that's how things got started. I then went through this period where they had a new administrator, and he was doing some things that, just people couldn't accept. I mean, he made a mandate if you had tattoos on your body, you had to cover them all up. If they're on your hands, you had to wear gloves. If they're on your face, you had to put bandages on there. On your arms, you had to wear a turtleneck in the summer to cover up your neck. So it's like guys were leaving. There was 120 people there when he came, and then 3 months later it was down to 23 people. So anyways, when that was going on, as I heard people were going to leave, I would go ahead and approach them and say, I know you came here to get help and you're not getting it right now. If I could get you into another program, would you do that? And if they said yes, then I would arrange for that program to come and meet me in the alley. And I'd bring that person out there and they would interview them, and then they were off. And so after I did that a few times, they caught wind that I was doing it, and I got fired, essentially.
You're like the back alley help guy.
Right. Yeah, it's when I did get fired, they didn't call it being fired. They eliminated my position, which is another word for you're fired.
Right.
And then I got a job at Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. So I was already employed, but I still cared about those guys at the Salvation Army. And I thought, well, what can I do, Lord? Oh, I sent letters off. That's what I did. I sent letters off to their leadership in Illinois and didn't get a response from anyone. And then I finally thought, well, okay, I'm going to send something off to the newly appointed general of the Salvation Army in London, England. And I did that and no response. And then I'm sitting there and praying about it. I was like, what can I do, Lord? And he's like, call Channel 9 News. investigative reporting. And so I called there and I said, this is some of the stuff that's going on over there. Are you interested in doing a story? And they said, well, can we come out and film you? I said, sure. So they came out with a film crew and a reporter, and they were asking me all sorts of questions. And so the following day, I was on TV. So in my interview, I said, if they don't make a change with this guy, I'm going to lead a protest. And they didn't make a change. And so I had about 100 people who were going, holding signs, going back and forth in front of the door of the Salvation Army. And that day there was 3 different news channels that came out, and they interviewed me and why are you doing this? And I'm telling them why, how they're treating these people. They wouldn't let them even leave their workstation. It's a work therapy program, but only during the break times. Any other time, it's not okay. It was over 100 degrees in the summer in the warehouse, and people were like just feeling really faint from not having water and things like that. So it was just a bad situation.
And that's at your that was at your job. Sorry to interrupt. That's at your job that all this was happening, or at the Salvation Army?
Yeah, it's at the Salvation Army.
Okay.
It's at the Adult Rehabilitation Center in Minneapolis, 900 North 4th Street.
And they're making people work and work and work and not really get breaks and stuff.
Yeah, the program is work therapy, where they have to work 8 hours a day. Okay, so and these are they call them beneficiaries, the people who are there to overcome their addictions to drugs and alcohol. Anyhow, yeah, there were people fainting, stuff like that in the warehouse because it was so hot, and he didn't let them go and get water and stuff outside of the 15-minute breaks they would have in the morning and the afternoon. It was just ugly. Anyhow, I'm out of there, and I have a new job, and so yeah, I was at Teen Challenge then for 5 years, and I started out as a recovery coach in the short-term men's program there. And then I had an opportunity to go into admissions, where they do this public service announcement on KTIS radio. And if you need help, call 612-FREEDOM. Well, I was one of the people who answered those calls. So it was like first call for help. People are calling in, don't know what to do. So that was pretty rewarding, and I got to get a guy in the program, and he was doing really well. His mom was in the program, and I was able to do a class every Friday for 2 hours, and she was in that class, so I got to know her pretty well. Her son did something he shouldn't have, and he got discharged from the program.
Okay.
He went out and used heroin, and he died. He's 19 years old. Yeah, no, it was awful. And I went to his funeral, and then when I saw his mom, she came up to me and draped herself on my shoulders, started sobbing, and I felt the depth of her despair. And in that moment, God said, well, this is what I want you to do. I want you to come alongside those people who are outside of my will and let them know that they can choose something else. So that began kind of like my quest to figure out what are you asking of me, God? What do you want me to do? And so as I thought through the whole process, I went to the leadership and I asked them, I sent an email off, how about creating a position where I could do this? I could be the person who would go and reach out to those people who would leave the program for one reason or another. And it's like I got an email back saying, no, well, we can't do that at this time. God was relentless. He kept on me about it. So I'd say about a month later, I sent another email off saying, well, what if we did it like this? And they sent me another email that said, no, we've already got 525 positions here. We're not going to create any more.
Okay.
And I went home and I prayed about it. And then God told me, well, just because you can't do it at Teen Challenge doesn't mean I don't want you to do it. So I went in the next day and I talked to the CEO and I said, well, this is what God told me. And he's like, no, Dave, we really need this. I'll get everybody on the same page. And so he went out and got agreement. It's like, we really do need something like this. And so they started to create a position for me. And it took a while, but, everything kind of came together, my roles and responsibilities. And they were going to have an all-staff meeting and announce it. And then they wanted me to meet with them before the all-staff meeting. And so I met with them, and they said, well, here we have another department called community outreach, and they go into the jails and the detoxes. So we don't want you going into those two areas. And so I had a check in my spirit about that. I went home and I prayed about it, and God told me, I want you to go where I'm going to send you, not where man tells you you can or cannot go.
Okay.
So I'm like, yeah. So I went in the next day, and I told my boss, I said, I just can't accept this position. I have to do this thing God's way. She said, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, I need to write a letter of resignation. And so that's what I did. I sat down at my computer and I wrote a letter of resignation to the same leadership team that met with me the day before. They had this contract. All I had to do was sign it. And I just said, no, I have to do it God's way. He's going to send me wherever he's going to send me, and I'm going to go. He's my boss. I'm going to follow him. So that's it. And I left. I didn't have a job. I had accrued PTO time, so I had some money. But then when I resigned, I lost half of it. I'm like, oh boy.
Oh,
So I'm sitting at home. Yeah, it was. And I didn't have a plan. But I knew that I heard a lot of people. There was like 3 people who told me, oh, Dave, it's time to get out of the boat. I'm like, wow. And then God spoke that into my spirit too. And so it's like, okay, I have to do this. I've always worked for somebody. I did have a company of my own for a while, but for the most part, I've always been an employee. And so this time it's like, God's my boss, I'm just going to do what he wants me to do. So about 3 months later, I get a knock on my door. I have no money. And I open the door, and here's this FedEx package. I open it up, and it's a contract to be Santa. Okay. And I had been Santa in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, a year earlier, but that company got acquired by this new company. And so as I read through it, there's my name, my address, and everything. And it was a contract to go to Sacramento, California. And so I called the lady who had sent it. Her number was on there. And I left a message, please call me as soon as you get this. She called me the next morning and said, yeah, I just want to know what airport you want to leave out of. And I said, well, you can't just send me a contract. You have to talk to me first. And she goes, no, we've talked. I said, ma'am, we have not talked. You should check and see, is there another David Johnson? And sure enough, that's it. This was supposed to go to the other David Johnson.
Oh, wow.
And then I got that all cleared up. And then she goes, well, what about you? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, do you want to go out? I said, well, where? And she goes, Newport Beach, California. I'm like, winter in Minnesota versus Newport Beach, California. So yeah, I'll go out. And so that was it. I was Santa in Fashion Island Mall, which is a very upscale mall right on the ocean. And I loved it. It's really funny. I said, well, is there a per diem, for food? And she goes, oh no, in 30 years we've never given a per diem. And I said, oh no, that's too bad. And then she said, well, if we gave you an additional $3,000, would that cover it, do you think? I went, well, I think it'll just make it. So she increased my salary. And so then they paid my way out there. They gave me a car. They put me up in a hotel. And then I started meeting people there. One of the first ones that came through was this husband and wife with their 1-year-old son and their golden doodle. His name is Miles.
Okay.
And so they had their picture taken with Santa in the Santa house there. And then afterwards I said to the lady, do you know other people who have golden doodles? I just love golden doodles. And she looked at me and smiled. And she goes, I'm the person who started Orange County Golden Doodles. And I'm like, oh, wow. And so she started telling all of her friends. And then they all came because they wanted to have their picture taken with me. They set up a Santa romp, and I just had a great time. It was so nice because that was the kickoff. I made more money there in 6 weeks than I would have made in 6 months at Teen Challenge.
Nice.
And I didn't take the money as, pay. I had it go into the ministry that I had started as a 501c3. We had no money in there. So all the money that I made being Santa for those 6 weeks went to kind of support the ministry, and that kind of launched it. And then I would work, and then I would get paid again out of the money that I already made. And I'm the only employee of the ministry, so that's kind of how this thing got started. And then God's been doing amazing things since that time. 4 years, it was basically me by myself, and I would get all these calls. So I'm working 12 years at the Salvation Army and 5 years at Teen Challenge. So many people knew me. So they would call if there was trouble with themselves or someone they knew. I would talk to them about what is needed. Do you need to go to detox, or do you need to go to a mental health crisis unit? Or do you want to go right into a program? And there's a bunch of options here for you. Which one would you like? So I would tell them about all the options, and I would let them choose. I would never try to force anything on them. And if they weren't ready, they just weren't ready. It's like, okay, keep my number. There might come a time when you're ready to just change things up, and I'll help you at that time.
Nice.
Yeah. So after 4 years, then the person came to me and said, this is really cool what you're doing. You're helping all these people. You're getting people in all these programs. I used to speak at all of the teen challenges, and I still do. And at Salvation Army, at Metro Hope, at a place called the Healing House, at the Marie Sandvik Center, they would ask me to come and speak. So it's kind of like on a circuit almost. And because God was doing something, He's doing a new thing, and He's helping all these people get their lives back. And it was a beautiful thing. Jesus came to set the captives free. They were in captivity, and they couldn't get themselves free from the bondage that they were in. The ministry started growing, and then I went to the healing rooms of St. Paul to get prayer. And I went in there, and they said, well, we had this vision, and it was of you. There was a train engine, and you were the engineer on that train. And then all these cars were going click, 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 and it was getting really big. And then they drew this out, and I have it on my refrigerator.
Okay.
And then afterwards they said to me, Dave, you started this as Lost Sheep Ministries MN, but maybe it should have been Lost Sheep Ministries International. And I kind of laughed and scoffed at that. Well, then I lost my debit card.
Oh, no.
Okay. Yeah. And so I had to get a new debit card. A short time later, GoDaddy, who was hosting my website, sent me an email that said, hey, we couldn't process your payment. And so I called them. I gave them my new card. And then I asked, is Lost Sheep Ministries International a domain name that's available? And they checked, and it was. And so I said, okay, I want to keep that for as long as I could have it. It was 5 years. Then I'm watching the NCAA tournament. I get a text message from a guy that used to go to a church that I had gone to. And he was saying that he got locked out of his Facebook, and could I give him this 6-digit number when it gets sent to me? And I said, okay, sure. And so I just sent it off to him. I didn't think anything of it.
Oh, no.
Next thing you know, I got locked out of my personal Facebook page and the ministry page.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and so I'm like, I'm stuck. I can't even get in there. And then he starts representing me. He's going out to all the people, and there was 4,000 people, right, who are following this ministry.
Holy
and
cow.
He's going out to these people saying that he's me, asking for money. Then they start giving him money.
No.
Yeah, it was terrible. And I called the police department I live, and they came out and met with me and took some information, and there was a case number that they started. And then I called Facebook, and Facebook, they didn't even respond. I mean, I couldn't even get through to a live person. I didn't know how to even go about doing it. It was very, very frustrating. The police department said, no, you're going to have to go through them. And like, okay. So anyhow, we just made the determination then. It's like, well, we already have Lost Sheep Ministries International. We're going to go through the process of going through the state and changing our name, and with the federal government as well. So then we became Lost Sheep Ministries International. And I'm doing the same thing, but then there was this new twist to it and the international part. And I just had this sense that I was supposed to go to Israel. Like I was like going to have a meeting with God in Israel. And it kind of freaked me out.
Yeah.
And I had two of my board members who came with me. And while we were in Israel, the first day we were staying it's called the Abraham Hostel in Jerusalem. And we came in at night, slept that night. And then the next morning we went and had breakfast. And sitting at a table in front of us was a man and a woman, and she had a shirt on, and I couldn't quite make it out what it said. And she got up to leave, and it said, "Do what you love and love what you do." And I stopped her. I said, "Excuse me." I said, "I have to tell you, your shirt that's a profound statement. I mean, if everyone did that, this world would be in such a better shape."
Right.
And so, yeah, that we just had just nice conversation and stuff. They left. We finished our breakfast. And then I said, well, let's go outside and check out the courtyard. And we went out there, and here's this husband and wife sitting at a table reading the Bible together. And so I had a shirt on. It said Lost Sheep Ministries, and she wanted to know what it was.
The
And
pieces are just fitting together at this point. They're just falling into place.
Yeah, it's just like it was God, how he's arranging everything. He's ordering my steps. And so she wanted to know about the ministry. I said, well, it's now international, but it started out like this. And I was just coming alongside the lost and the brokenhearted, those people who are caught up in addiction to drugs and alcohol, and entering into a conversation to have them see if they're interested in a better life. And if they were, then I would help direct them in some way. And so then now we've been putting on these other things called Setting the Captives Free intensive retreats, where we do spiritual warfare, deliverance, inner healing, and restoration. And she's like, oh, wow, we need that. Would you come to the Philippines?
Wow.
So without me asking, see, God was setting everything up for us to go ahead and have launched this international ministry. And before we left, there were 5 nations who had invited us to go do ministry in their countries. So it was all, it was all God. He knew the plans he had for us, plans to prosper us, not to harm us, plans to give us hope in the future. He was launching us into something that I knew nothing about, but I was willing to do. And so now it was really interesting. When we were there, we went to this place. It's a church on Mount Carmel called Ha Carmel.
Okay.
It's where Elijah brought down the fire, right? Had the rain come down, and it's right in that same spot, and God just burned up that offering there. So anyhow, there was a man that we wanted to meet because he had a ministry to disciple men who were in the struggle with drugs and alcohol. It was a part of this church, and it's called House of Victory. And he wasn't at church that day. It was Purim Sunday, and it was a reenactment of the Book of Esther that they did. But it's a Messianic congregation right at Mount Carmel, and so he wasn't there. And we had wanted to meet with him, so we made a point. We're going to go see him. So I'm going there, and we're about 15 minutes away. This is another day, and I asked God, is there something you want me to say or do? And he's like, yes. Ask him if he would allow somebody from Minnesota to come into that program.
Okay.
So I go over there. They're having pizzas just brought in. So we sat down and had the pizza feast with those people, and asked if he'd be open to having some men from Minnesota come into the program. And he said, well, what kind of men are you talking about? I mean, what's their backgrounds like? And I said, well, most of them have got sordid backgrounds. A lot of them are felons. And he said, we love felons. And so
I
it's
don't
like,
hear that every day.
No, you don't hear that every day. He's just an amazing man. And so we finish our trip, I come home. It was just an amazing trip. Asking some people, the first place I went to is Teen Challenge Leadership Institute to see, do they have some guys there that might be interested in going to Israel? And it was for 3 months. They would live there. They kind of work there with them, but they get to go see all the holy sites. I mean, it's just an amazing opportunity. When I went, it was for 13 days. They're going for 3 months.
Wow. So who pays for all that when they go there? Because these felons, they don't have the money to pay for airfare and stuff.
We just asked Teen Challenge. We were just talking to them. He interviewed. I was part of it, but we talked to one guy live with video through WhatsApp, and then one of the directors of TCLI, and it didn't work out for those guys to go. And I asked a couple other guys, and then finally I asked another guy, and he said that for over the years he's wanted to go to Israel. They had to pay their own way there. Okay.
Okay.
So it's a round trip ticket, but then they would stay in this place and they would provide all their food and lodging for them. It was a minimal cost. They had to have enough money if they wanted to go and stay somewhere for a couple of days, or if they wanted to buy some, ice cream or get a haircut or stuff like that, incidental money. But for the most part, it was being taken care of.
Okay.
And this guy, I talked to him about it, and he was gung ho. He was so excited about it. So I called this guy, and we left a message. I talked, and I said, "Hey, Eric, I found this gentleman who's very interested." And then I gave the phone over to him, and then he talked and said, "Yeah, this is something I've wanted to do for so long, and if there's an opportunity, I'd like to make that happen." So anyways, right now, that gentleman is over in Israel. And why did it happen? It happened because I stopped and asked God, "Is there something you want me to say or do?" And I heard him say, "Yes, ask him if he would allow somebody from Minnesota to come over there." So I listened and obeyed. The result is that gentleman is over there having the time of his life. He just sent me a video where he's on a boat on the Sea of Galilee, and they're worshiping there.
Wow.
It was just amazing. And it's just one thing after another, all these different experiences that he's having. So God is doing a new thing, and he's created relationships with lots of people while we were over in Israel. So now we're planning another trip. We've got 8 people who are interested in going in November. So just as God did something to me while I was there, I think he wants to do that for them as well. An interesting thing, when I was over there, let's see here, I want to read something to you, because I had asked God if, let's see here, while I'm over in Jerusalem, I'm having this prayer. It's Jeremiah 33:3, "Call to me and I will answer you and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know." So I'm saying, Lord, you brought me over here for a reason. And this had already happened where I got this introduction on the first morning to the people over in the Philippines. I said, Lord, I know that you brought me here for a reason. I just really want to know, what is it? And I hear Isaiah 55:5 in my head. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And so I went to my phone and looked it up, and it says this: "Surely you will summon nations you know not, and nations you do not know will come running to you because of the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, for he has endowed you with splendor." I'm like, oh, wow.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then what happened after that is we had 4 other nations that we had invites to go to those nations. And so God was doing this new thing. He was raising this little itty bitty ministry up to do something. And we haven't really done it yet. We just went to Israel in March. But our first trip again is going to be back to Israel. And I'm thinking that the other people are going to get their marching orders the same way God gave me my marching orders. And so I'm just trying to following his lead, because he's the one that puts everything in motion. How my ministry works, I sit at home and have a cup of coffee, and my phone will ring, and then somebody will be, asking me, what can I do? And so that's what starts it. Then I go and pick them up. I bring them to wherever it is that they're going to be going. So transportation is not an issue. I went 9 hours round trip to get one guy, and that guy, he said if he wouldn't have got out that day, he was going to take his life. He couldn't take it any longer. Wow. Yeah. So God is, he's so faithful. He knows what he's doing. He knows where his lost sheep are. And somehow there's a connection that gets made, and it all initiates with him.
That's
So I'm just
amazing.
very
Like
grateful.
one phone call can lead to all this adventure. That's all it takes is one phone call, and that changes your whole life, and it changes the life of one other person, and in turn, by it
Yeah,
changes the lives of a bunch of people.
it does. You're right. You're absolutely right. Well, I mean, and the reason that we're talking is I got a phone call from you.
Right, and the reason we're talking is because my daughter had sent me a screenshot of your phone number.
Yeah. See, it's going viral. That's what's happening. And God's getting the message out there that there is somebody you can call for help. He will answer his phone. I sleep with my phone. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I get phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning. I've left my house at 3 o'clock in the morning to go rescue somebody. So it's like when somebody needs help, they need help. It's not like, okay, well, maybe tomorrow when I
Right,
when
or
I feel
schedule an appointment for 6 months down the road when someone's available to talk
no,
to.
this is critical. I mean, it's like right now.
Right.
If somebody's asking for help, I mean, that means they're desperate, because it's hard to pick up that 400-pound phone and make a phone call. This could change my life here. I don't know. I just applaud anybody who is out there, who is struggling. They want to quit, but this thing has got such a grip on you. It's become your master. It's telling you what you're going to do and when you're going to do it, and you're just obeying. And so even if you don't want to continue, you do, because now there's this physical need to have that drug or the alcohol, and you're afraid. Nobody likes to go through withdrawals, and now what's happening is it's an epidemic. They're putting fentanyl in everything, and people are chasing fentanyl. They want more of it. I had to did the funeral of a guy who came through the Salvation Army. And this is some years after he got out of there, but he overdosed and he died. And then I was actually Santa down in California, and I get a message from the concierge that I needed to call this number. Well, this guy, his other son had died, and he wanted me to come from California to do his funeral too. So I did. I did the funerals of these two brothers who both died of overdoses.
Wow.
And
Did
it's
you
crushing.
have to leave doing Santa to do this? Because that must have been hard going back to playing Santa right after receiving that kind of phone call.
Yep, I did. That's exactly what I had to do. So it's kind of refreshing, okay, in that for like 10 and a half months, I am, this guy who's going after these lost sheep. The lost sheep their lives, it's all a mess. Everything's a mess. It's all chaos. It's all trauma. It's just trying to, lift them up and support them. Okay, so to go to be Santa, and I'm representing Jesus when I do that, is this opportunity to be with these little lambs instead of the lost sheep. And it's so invigorating. It fills me up again. It's like I have new life being with these innocent little kids who are in awe. I'm in awe of God, that they see Santa as this figure, and they're kind of in awe. They're on their best behavior. I don't know. It's not hard. It wasn't hard to come back. I hated to come back to do a funeral, but at the same time, going back to those little kids was refreshing for me to do that again. It's like, okay, I know what I'm called to do, and I'm doing it, and I'm so grateful. I look at my life. Every job I've ever had has prepared me for what I'm doing right now, and it's not. This isn't easy, and yet it's very rewarding when I see somebody who's actually changed their life. It's every time I see that person, they hug me. That guy that was going to take his life that I went 9 hours for. Every time he sees me, I have to get up. If I'm sitting down, get up, and he comes kind of right over to me because he has to give me this big hug, bear hug. And I told him, I said, I want you to know that every experience that you're going to have from this moment on, when I was rescuing him, it's a gift from God. You have to treasure every moment, because if God hadn't sent me here, and it was his former girlfriend who couldn't go. She had gone through Teen Challenge 2, but it was still too new, so she couldn't do it. She called me and asked me, and I left right away. I said, yeah, I'll go. So it was 4.5 hours up there. Well, after he got back, those two got reconnected, started dating, going to the same church, and now they're married.
Oh, nice.
And the joy. I mean, it's so rewarding for me to see lives get turned around like that. I just did a wedding of a guy that came through the Salvation Army last weekend, and that was amazing. And then on October 1st, they had a gathering of all the naturally bearded Santas. It's called North Star Santas at the Swedish Institute. So we went there, had a nice dinner. All these Santas dressed up as Santas, you know. And yeah, it was interesting. And they had us all line up on this big stairway going down. You know, I think there were 67 Santas, and there were some Mrs. Clauses, right? So they were taking this picture, but down at the bottom was this little girl about 5 years old, and I was like, I tapped the lady in front of me. I said, "You see that little girl? I wonder what she's thinking right now." I thought there was only one Santa.
Right.
Yeah, it's very rewarding.
Right.
But it doesn't compare to this rescue mission that God has me on. That He loves those people who are so lost and brokenhearted. He loves them, absolutely loves them. And people they've lost, I mean, they've turned to self-hatred, self-loathing. They despise themselves because of what they're doing. They view it as despicable, and yet they're caught in it, and they can't stop.
Right.
It's terrible. And the thing with fentanyl now, they're putting it in everything. It's in meth. It's in cocaine. They're spraying liquid fentanyl on marijuana. They're getting people so addicted, you know. And a lot of these people are just dying. They're not coming back. That's it. I mean, if you use that stuff, if you smoke one of those pills, it's a press Perk 30. It's all fake. It's deadly, and one pill will kill you. And people are putting that into aluminum foil, in the foil, and smoking it and dying.
Wow.
Terrible. It's just terrible. You know, glory to God that he just tapped me and said, okay, I can use you for this. And I said, okay, I'll go wherever you send me, Lord. And so that's kind of where things are at right now. And it's exciting. And my phone, it rings, you know. I picked up one guy, okay. He was in Cambridge and he wanted to go into the program. I said, okay, I'll come and get you. And he goes, well, can I just do it tomorrow? Because I want to spend the night with my kids watching some movies and having some popcorn and stuff. I said, oh, sure, that's fine. And so I went and picked him up the next day. And it's only 45 minutes from Cambridge to where I was going to bring him at the Salvation Army ARC. And I got 17 phone calls in that time span.
Wow.
And he's like, how do you do this? I said, well, I don't know, but I mean, God just keeps the calls coming. And that's the whole thing. I mean, these people, they know me. It's not like I can just have somebody else do it. So they call me because they know me. They know my phone number. My phone number, just like you got my phone number. It's all over the internet. Right? Yeah. Right. And so it's viral. I just got a guy in from Indiana into the Salvation Army. So it's viral.
So do you get overwhelmed sometimes with all this attention, all these calls coming in and all these people asking for your help? There's only so many hours in a day and you can only help so many people.
I just have to turn everything over. The Lord says, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. And take my yoke upon you. It's easy and light. And so that's what I do. I just turn it all over. Lord, okay, I'm ready again. Well, whatever you want to do, Lord. I mean, I'm up for it. I get tired, and I mean, once I sit down, you know, if it's quiet for any amount of time, next thing you know, I'll fall asleep. Because I mean, this is rigorous. I mean,
I imagine so. Mentally and mentally and physically, it's got to be exhausting, but so rewarding.
Yeah. Well, to God be the glory. oh boy. I mean, for anybody who is living their life without a relationship with the Lord Jesus, I mean, you don't understand what you're missing. And furthermore, so this is the scripture that turned my whole life around. It's Galatians 5:16. It says, "So I say, live by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the sinful nature." So being led by the Spirit, the Holy Spirit. When I don't know what to do, when I call out, I said, "God, I don't know what to do. What do you want me to do? Is there something you want me to say or do?" When I was in Israel, yes, ask him if he would do this. Accept this. Some people from Minnesota. All I did was I asked the question. He says, "Call to me and I will answer you and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know." That's what I did. Called out to him, and the Holy Spirit answered me, told me what I needed to do. Boom. So I did it, and there it is. Here's the manifest glory of God. Here's the result. There's a guy over there in Israel right now. His name is Brian. God bless you, Brian. Yeah, it just works. So for anybody who's in the struggle, God is our ever-present help in time of need. If you're struggling, this is your time of need. This is just call on God. Tell him I can't do this anymore. I can't quit on my own. I need your help. He will help you. He'll do for you what you can't do for yourself. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He wants to strengthen you so you can be an overcomer. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. You can do this. You can do this. And you can reclaim your life. And it's going to be better than it ever has been. And there's going to be a reunification with you and your kids. It's going to be a healing and a restoration. God bless all of you who are out there struggling. God knows where you are. He knows your name. You were created to have meaning and purpose in your life. And that's just waiting for you to step into your destiny and realize that he has something more for you. So just embrace it. And God bless you. God, he's so amazing. He's our good Father. So, a gentleman from my church texted me and said, "Hey, Dave, would you be interested in 10 acres of land with 2 houses on it in southern Minnesota? It's 2.5 hours away." And I said yes right away without knowing anything about it. And then he sends me this gentleman's name and phone number, and I call him, and he goes, what do you know about this? I said, "Well, I just heard that you have some property, 10 acres of land and 2 houses on it." And he says, "Well, let me tell you, one of the houses is a farmhouse, and then the other house is a 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom, 3-story brick Victorian house that has been totally redone. It's fully furnished, and it could be the movie set for any movie. It's so beautiful."
Wow.
And I'm like blown away by this. And I said, "Yeah, of course, we're very, very interested." And he said, "Well, tell me about yourself." So he wanted to know that we are a ministry, and we are, and we're a 501c3, which is a nonprofit organization filed with the state and everything. He wanted to give this property to a ministry, and specifically one with a 501c3. And this house had raccoons living in it at one point.
No.
And it was just terrible. They had to tear it down, to the studs and rebuild the whole thing. So this is like over 100-year-old house that's brand new on the inside.
Nice.
And it looks like it's 100 years old on the inside.
Okay.
So anyhow, he had this criteria. He'd already talked to 3 different ministries. We were the 4th one. We came in late in the game. He said, "Well, here's the thing. We have a deadline. We have to have all of this paperwork into us by this date." I'm like, "Okay, I'm all over this. This is my priority right now." And so I started gathering everything that he needed, and we got it off in time. And then he told me that the first ministry, they just wanted to flip the house and make the money on it.
Oh.
And he's like, we're not interested in that. And then the second one said, "Well, we can't possibly get all of that information that you want to have together in a timely manner." And so they were out of it. And then the third one, they went and stayed in the house. They loved it. And it was a ministry, okay? and international ministry. And as they prayed in the house, they had heard about our ministry. And as they prayed, they heard from God, and they responded that God told them that this should go to Lost Sheep Ministries. So another ministry listened to God, okay, and made the recommendation to the owner that they're not gonna go forward with it. It should go to us. So we actually got this property with these two houses on it, and
That's so amazing. I
yeah,
like got
and
tears in my eyes now. It's
it's all God. He knows what he's doing. And okay, so when we got the property, our vision for it is we were gonna use this house to train people to do the thing that we're doing in our ministry, setting these captives free. Because people can go through these long programs, 13 months, 6 months to a year programs. And if you don't get to what happened originally, where did the trauma start? What is the thing that has caused this person to start using PTSD, trauma, all these things? And if you don't get at that while they're in a program, they'll go out and they can get themselves right back in trouble. The enemy's always got that bright, shiny thing out there for them. And it's like, oh boy, that's my drug of choice.
right.
Maybe I'll just use a little. And if you use one time, you're off to the races. So anyhow, we got this house, and that's how we were going to use it to train people. And then we heard that, well, there's domestic abuse going on. So we were just going to use it infrequently. But domestic abuse, and then there's trafficking going on, things like that. And so we have a board of directors, and we're just looking at how could we use this house in a way that helps more people.
Right.
So that's what we're looking to do, and maybe put other buildings on the site, because we have 10 acres of land. There's an orchard there. I mean, it's just beautiful. There's all these outbuildings. It's like a farmstead. I don't know. It's beautiful. God is so good. He's just so very good. So we just want to obey God. We want to do the thing that he wants us to do. We want to help people. We want to get people restored so they don't have to die out there because of fentanyls and everything. So anyways.
Right. It's such a contrasting thing, like the people out on the street versus this property you just got. It just sounds so beautiful. And this is the stuff you can have if you give up that one thing, that one drug.
That's right. Yeah. And it's the top level, we've got like 6 beds up there right now. It's so big. And these bathrooms are lavish. I mean, you can't even believe these bathrooms. They spared no expense. They put geothermal heating in this place.
Wow.
So I know it's warmed, in the winter by these different things going out in the ground that tap into the water, right? And then it's cooled in the summer by the same thing. It's just very advanced. It's God, giving his very best to us. And he said, there's no good thing I would withhold from you. And we're seeing it played out. He's blessing us, and he continues to bless us. Now, since we got hacked, the problem is people stop giving, to our ministry. Our ministry is only run by donations. And we're a small ministry, but God's calling us to do big things. Right. So there's a lot of expenses. So that's one thing. Any supporters, any people who have been touched by even hearing this message, if you want to support this ministry, you can by going to lostsheepministries.org. That's lostsheepministries.org. So, and we appreciate all you givers. You'll get a tax donation at the end of the year for your tax purposes, a receipt. So we're just grateful for all the people who come alongside us, the ones that can't do what we do, but they support us, financially, and they support us with their prayers. So I have a prayer team that prays for this ministry every Friday from 10 to 11. And it's just amazing. And they pray for me and this ministry and what God's doing And we just it's almost overwhelming. When I start talking about it, I get choked up when I see how God is changing lives and how He's rescuing these people that are so lost. It's such an honor to be able to do this, and I'm just grateful to God that He would choose me to kind of head this ministry. It's His ministry, but He chose me, He tapped me to do this, and I'm grateful for it. So I just want to say, to God be the glory. I mean, you're just an amazing God, and I love you, God. Well, just, I appreciate you. Listen, how God talked to me about doing this, He did the same thing to you. Okay, that's what you're doing. You're just being obedient. You're doing what He's asked you to do.
Right.
And yeah, so it's you're a blessing to my ministry. You're a blessing to all the people who get to receive and hear. You look at all the time you put into doing something like this. This is not an easy task.
No, it's very time consuming, but to me, it's very rewarding. It's about the message. It's about helping people rather than gaining any popularity or wealth or anything for myself.
No, I get that. Just the visibility. There's another guy that came to me. This is really weird. And he said, hey, I do this local newspaper thing where I have a column that I put in every month, and I'd like to do a column on your ministry. Really? It's out of the blue. And he actually is now at Teen Challenge. So he had to slip himself and went back in there. But that's where I met him. I went to Teen Challenge, and he interviewed me at Teen Challenge, and then he's doing up this article. I haven't even seen it yet. That'll be coming out here, probably in the next couple of weeks, I would guess.
So is it kind of scary starting to get all this recognition and attention?
I have to diffuse it. To God be the glory. It's just that people hear, because there aren't people out there doing this, So when they hear that somebody is out there doing this, moves on them. It's not about me. It's about what God's doing. And there's a lot of people who want to help as well, And so, like, if I have to go get a woman, I always have another woman come with me.
Okay.
Just I don't want to have this thing.
Right. You never know in today's society what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't want to be accused of doing something. Right. I don't want any black marks for this ministry. I mean, this is God's ministry, and we're just trying to keep it ordained by Him, anointed by Him to do the things that He's asked us to do. All I can say is just it's working. There's, I don't know how many people. I mean, got 3 people in a program in one day last week.
Nice.
So,
well, I hope that this message reaches people. Right now, I've only got 20 followers, but
yeah,
if something strikes someone,
I tell you what, I mean, I can put it on Facebook, so it'll be a lot of people will hear about it.
That would be awesome. I know that I share it with my group of people on Facebook, but most of them aren't even interested in anything I have to say. But it's not like I don't know. It takes a lot of courage to bear my soul and my mistakes like I do. And they don't realize that it's like unburdening myself to the freaking world. And that's just to prove that I'm a human.
You're a human. Yep. And you're doing a great job, let me tell you.
Oh, well, thank you.
And it takes guts to do what you're doing. And God is going to, reward you for what you're doing too. I'm sure of it, because you're part of His messaging campaign. You're bringing the message out there.
Yeah, I'm working with a coworker too. Like, we've inspired each other, and right now my goal is just to make the work environment better for everyone there. Like, I wear crazy hats, and people enjoy the crazy hats, and when I don't wear it, they get kind of upset. And it's like, you guys can participate too. I don't have to carry everyone all the time, but I do it because I know other people struggle, and they don't want to say they're struggling in these weird little things I do. If it just brings a smile for a second, that's all I'm asking.
That's nice. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, I sure appreciate you.
And I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Yeah. Well, it's my pleasure.
All right. Well, have a great day now.
All right. You too. All right. God bless you. Bye now.
In closing, I would like to say that the opinions expressed here were strictly of my own making, or by my guests. Take what you like and leave the rest. You may come to realize that you may not like me or what I want to share. Let's talk to each other, reason things out, but let there be no gossip or criticism of one another. Instead, let the fellowship of ethical human behavior and the serenity from positive human interaction help you grow and chill out, one experience at a time. I would like to thank my higher power for guiding me through this podcast. I hope to spread the message of love, hope, and understanding by touching one life at a time. If you like this podcast, please like and share it. Comments also help other struggling people find it. I am now listener supported, and if you would like to contribute, please feel free. There is no obligation. If you would like to share feedback, you can email me at averagehumanbeing1875@gmail.com. There is also a link you can click if you'd like to send a voice message and add to the content of the show.
Okay, so there you have it. It was Dave Johnson of Lost Sheep Ministries, and I've been a little bit in contact with them since. Let me stop sharing this. I've had some more contact with them since doing this interview, and I've gotten to talk to a couple more people in his ministries, and those will be up and coming, like way further up the line. Sorry for stepping away for a little bit. I got a phone call and I didn't want to be rude, so I just made the screen go without me. Whatever. I don't know what I'm trying to say. All right. Well, I hope that you all got something good from listening to Dave. And if you want to help out his ministry in any way, there is information in there that he shared. And I'll also provide a link to Lost Sheep Ministries International. So have a great day. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.